and welcome to DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf, joined by Riley Fessler. How are you doing, Riley?
Not too bad.
I know for a fact that even though it's 90 something, you're out there training for a half marathon. I think it's important to point out because it's important that our listeners know that you're out of your mind.
And that it's also important they know I don't just stay in my rat-infested apartment all day.
Yeah, that's true. How are the rats doing? Are they almost gone, or
I think they're gone. I
that's
mean, I
great?
haven't heard anything or heard them, so I'm assuming they're gone. I
Well,
choose to
Mazel tov.
believe.
That's great. See, Washington, at least one place in Washington is less rat infested than it was 6 months ago. All right. Well, let's dive in. What do you got?
Britain announced it would recognize a Palestinian state at the UN in September unless Israel improves conditions in Gaza and recommits to a two-state solution peace process, prompting sharp criticism from Israel and the US. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's move was defended by officials who emphasized it was not a reward for Hamas, which Britain designates as a terrorist organization, but a response to the humanitarian crisis affecting Palestinian civilians. The decision follows similar plans by France and marks a shift from the previous Western stance of tying recognition to the outcome of negotiations with Israel. Critics argue the approach risks isolating Israel further and could complicate diplomacy, while supporters see it as a necessary step amid stalled peace efforts.
Yeah, I mean, come on. The Palestinian people have the right to self determination like any other group of people. And every day that there is less of an international commitment to guaranteeing that right, the Israelis are going in and annexing land in the West Bank, planning to annex land in Gaza. And they are also committing crimes against these people, which could also lead to ethnic cleansing. There is a time clock on all of this, and the time clock says the international community has to step up and guarantee the rights of those Palestinians and put pressure of a kind they have not yet imposed on Israel, And that pressure should be withholding aid, imposing sanctions, prosecuting people who are responsible for war crimes. That's what's got to be happening now. The fact that it hasn't been happening over the course of the onslaught against Gaza is appalling. But it's also a sign that the policies that have been utilized by countries around the world aren't working. So yeah, it's time to do this. I don't think they should have waited until September. I think all these countries should be stepping up. I think the U.S. should be too. It won't be. And to the extent that it's not, to the extent that it's defending what Israel is doing, and every day there are news stories of Israeli troops firing rounds into civilians, which is a war crime, of withholding aid, of making it difficult for aid organizations to get in. Every day these stories occur, and the United States defends it. We've got more blood on our hands in this country. It's encouraging to see the world move, but the world is moving far, far too slowly and with far, far too few levers and sources of pressure. Step it up. It's that people, thousands of people, will die in the weeks ahead of famine in a country next to a highly developed place like Israel. Really, really heartbreaking. Riley.
A massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake struck off Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula, triggering tsunami waves that reached Japan, Hawaii, and the U.S. West Coast, and parts of Canada, prompting widespread evacuations and emergency alerts. While several people were injured and some buildings damaged, especially in Kamchatka, no major casualties or catastrophic destruction have been reported. Tsunami warnings and advisories were gradually downgraded across affected regions, though officials warned that dangerous waves and strong currents could persist for hours. The quake, among the strongest ever recorded, reignited memories of Japan's 2011 disaster and disrupted transportation and power in various coastal areas across the Pacific.
Yeah, I mean, this it was quite a stunningly large quake, and it's fortunate that the parts of the U.S. and other countries' coasts that were threatened by tsunamis were not actually impacted by them. But it's a reminder that we live in a world in which natural disasters occur. Natural disasters like this quake are a sign typically of other impending big kind of quakes and volcanic eruptions and so forth in the whole ring of fire region in the Pacific. And that all this comes at a time that we are in the United States reducing the resources available to our emergency management agency, that we are denying the source of many of the potential disruptions that we could see, such as climate change related sources. The decision taken this week by the EPA to eliminate the core finding that climate change is a threat to human beings is going to be absolutely devastating and make climate change worse. So we are increasing the likelihood that we're exposed to natural disasters and reducing our ability to respond to those natural disasters. And that's to say nothing of the cuts at the Weather Bureau and so forth that we've talked about before. So events like the one in Kamchatka yesterday should be wake-up calls, warning signs, reminders. This is coming. This will happen here one way or another, and we will be less prepared.
The U.S. Senate narrowly confirmed Emil Bove, Donald Trump's former defense lawyer, to a lifetime seat on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, despite unified Democratic opposition and 2 Republican defections. Bove, who defended Trump in multiple criminal cases, has faced whistleblower allegations of unethical conduct, including directing staff to ignore court orders and misleading senators. Critics, including over 900 former DOJ employees and 75 retired judges, argued it was inappropriate for a president to appoint his own criminal defense attorney to the federal bench. Supporters praised Bove's legal background, but Democrats accused him of showing excessive loyalty to Trump and purging DOJ staff seen as disloyal.
Horrible appointment. Anybody who cares about the justice system in the United States is outraged by this appointment. This is a guy who, the moment he becomes a judge, will be open for impeachment because of what he did when he was at the DOJ and how he sought to undermine and circumvent the decisions of other judges. It also shows, however, that the Republican Party is exclusively about partisanship, exclusively about Trump, and no longer cares at all for our institutions. This guy could serve for decades. He can do a huge amount of damage. It is a deeply, deeply disturbing development. And we're only 6 months in. There is more to come. And it's chilling, absolutely chilling.
EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin announced that the Trump administration will revoke the 2009 endangerment finding, a key scientific and legal basis for U.S. efforts to regulate greenhouse gas emissions under the Clean Air Act. If finalized, the move would eliminate the EPA's authority to curb climate pollution, effectively dismantling existing vehicle emissions rules and making it harder for future administrations to combat climate change. Critics, including scientists, environmental groups, and even industry stakeholders, argue the decision ignores scientific consensus and serves fossil fuel interests. The proposal is expected to face major legal challenges and marks the administration's most aggressive rollback yet of federal climate policy.
Yeah, well, this is what I was mentioning before. It is outrageous. It is contrary to science, and it's all part of a pay to play deal. Trump stood up in front of oil industry executives, said, "Give me $1 billion for my campaign, and I will give you whatever you want." He has done that. He is giving them whatever they want. He is focusing on fossil fuels. He is leading the United States against the global consensus on the science behind these issues and turning us into um, a country that is going to exacerbate the climate crisis. And I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that the climate crisis is the single greatest crisis facing the entire planet. And raising global temperatures will produce more extreme weather, will produce rising sea level, will displace tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people, will have hugely damaging economic costs, will have hugely damaging human costs, and we are contributing to it. And the reason we are contributing to it is for a corrupt reason, because certain people in certain industries are paying off a president who is the most corrupt president in American history and who does not care about the future. The last thing in the world you want as the president of the United States is a narcissist who does not believe the future matters if he is not part of it. The last thing you want is an 80-year-old guy who just doesn't care about tomorrow and is trying to make hay while the sun shines, get the gravy today, monetize his office today, and screw future generations. This is as big a crime against the American people and against the planet as Trump is committing. And it, sounds regulatory and boring and inside baseball, but it should be outraging everybody because everybody will be affected by the dangerous negative consequences of this decision.
President Trump admitted that Jeffrey Epstein stole Virginia Giuffre and other spa employees from his Mar-a-Lago club, prompting him to ban Epstein from the property. Trump acknowledged Giuffre, a key Epstein accuser who died by suicide in April, was likely one of those taken while working at the club's spa as a teenager. The comments have reignited scrutiny over Trump's past ties to Epstein, despite efforts by Trump and his administration to downplay the issue. As pressure mounts for more Epstein-related disclosures, Trump has dismissed the topic as boring and tried to shift public focus.
Shift public focus. He's standing on, Air Force One talking to reporters and saying, "Hey, the reason I broke up with Epstein is that he was stealing the underage girls that were working at Mar-a-Lago to have them go work for him. Underage girls like Virginia Giuffre, who have said that they were being sex trafficked, who said that they were being abused." It is pointed out by multiple observers that at no point in dealing with this has Trump ever expressed any concern for the victims of Epstein's crimes or Maxwell's crimes. But I have to say, this goes beyond that. This essentially was Trump saying yesterday that his rift with Epstein was essentially a rift between, his sex trafficking operation and Epstein's sex trafficking operation, between his interests as a pedophile and Epstein's interests as a pedophile. And if you think that's going too far, look at the accusations that have been made in court by multiple credible people against Trump and against Epstein. It is beyond outrageous to think that Trump was engaged in this behavior, that people ignored this behavior, and that somehow he thinks it's okay to talk about this behavior. What were underage girls doing providing massage and other services at Mar-a-Lago? What do you think they were doing? Especially when those girls have spoken out and said we were being trafficked, we were being abused, we were being forced to do things we didn't want to do. Don't their voices matter? Sadly, this woman committed suicide. It's interesting about that. Epstein is dead. This woman is dead. One of Epstein's lawyers is dead. Maxwell seems to be on the verge of cutting a deal. Well, she'll, get a pardon in exchange for her silence. This gets uglier by the minute. I haven't even gotten into my own personal conspiracy theories by how closely foreign intelligence operations were looking at all of this. If there were all these big name Americans getting involved in all this shady, shady stuff, wasn't somebody paying attention? Wasn't somebody using this as a way to sort of build up leverage that they may someday need with influential people, especially given the ties of Epstein and Trump to foreign intelligence operations? I just find it impossible to believe that's not the case. We don't make up conspiracy theories here, so I'll call it, just a speculation. But this story gets uglier by the minute. And if Trump thinks what he's doing is reducing the intensity of the public reaction to it, the opposite is true. That's it. That's all you want today.
Yep. It's not enough explosive stories for you, David.
Well, it is pretty explosive. And we will talk about some of what is going on here, more serious stuff, a little later today on Deep State Radio. Tomorrow on Words Matter. We have all of our usual stuff this week, so please go listen at the DSR Network. Go to the membership click on it, become a member, help support what we're doing. It really, really matters in times like these that you've got places that you can go that are going to provide you with expert perspectives that you can rely on, that are not, part of mass media that are increasingly controlled by a handful of billionaires who are close to Trump and trying to advance their view of the world at the expense of the facts. We're here on behalf of the facts and on behalf of you. And we'll be here again tomorrow. So join us tomorrow. Join us at all our pods. Thank you, Riley. Thank everybody for listening. Bye-bye.